Oh, Michelle, are you going to let the people in, or do you want us to click on the button too?
I'll let them in. And we have started recording now, everybody. Toads and all, Trina.
Hey.
Okay. All right. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the Calculus 1 Digital Course Enhancement Resource Collection. We really appreciate you joining us today. And we hope that this presentation gives you an idea of what we've included in the collection and suggestions on how to use the resources.
Hi, everyone.
Oh,
sorry.
Yep. First, we'd like to introduce you to the team. So I'll start by saying that my name is Tamar Avineri, and I'm a math instructor at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. I've been teaching there since 2004 and have also served on the Math Pathways Task Force as co-chair for the past 2 years.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Howe from UNCG. I've been a member of the Math and Stats department there for years. I've been there since 1998. I wear many hats. I teach our entry-level math classes as well as our pre-service high school teachers. I do a lot of advising, and I direct our Math Help Center. Over the last 2 years, like Tamar, I have enjoyed being one of the state co-chairs for the Math Pathways Project.
Hi, my name is Trina Palmer, and I've been on the math faculty at Appalachian State since 2004. I've had several different roles, and most recently my focus is on helping transfer students.
I'm Elizabeth Brown from the Department of Mathematics at NC State. Right now I'm a lecturer, but in 48 days I will be a teaching assistant professor in the math department at NC State.
Yay, congratulations, Elizabeth. I'm Matt Tenhusen. I'm at UNCW. I've been a member of the Math and Stats faculty there since 1993. I also served as department chair for 8 years. I'm currently the associate director in the Center for Teaching Excellence and the Center for Faculty Leadership at UNC Wilmington. And I'm also a participant in the Math Pathways program as well.
Hi, I'm Diana Ash. I work with Matthew as the director of the Center for Teaching Excellence and Center for Faculty Leadership at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And I'm also a professor in the English department at UNCW, where I've been teaching since 2000.
Joyce Ventimiglia wasn't able to join us today, but she's an instructional design specialist in the Teaching and Learning Collaborative at the North Carolina School of Science and Math and served as a consultant on this team.
And I'm Sarah Falls. I'm the University Librarian at UNC School of the Arts, and I'm happily celebrating my 2nd anniversary there on Wednesday. I'm incoming chair for the University Libraries Advisory Group, or we call ourselves ULAC. And in that capacity, I also serve as liaison to our Educational Resources Advisory Committee. Affordability Committee, excuse me.
Okay, well, in our presentation today, we'll begin with a brief description of the Digital Course Enhancements Project and description of our process in creating and curating resources for the collection. We'll talk briefly about our inclusion of open educational resources and how we cited those sources. We'll then dig a bit further into the resource collection and describe each of the 4 main resource types that we've included. We'll conclude with a description of the implementation guide and its contents, and we'll have plenty of time to take questions at the end. Well, as you know, many of you know, the North Carolina General Assembly has invested $5 million in non-recurring funding for the UNC system to enhance the student experience in digital learning during the 2020 summer and fall semesters. A portion of these funds has supported this project. The Digital Course Enhancements Project brought together teams of faculty and instructional designers from across the system to consider how to build and organize a set of materials that add value to any of 10 high enrollment introductory online courses. The team's approach to building this resource collection began with considering the core concepts in the study of calculus and the topics covered in most, if not all, Calculus 1 courses across the system. We recognize that different institutions may emphasize different topics, so we wanted to offer resources that would align with the union of those topics. We also approached the project with the view that the resource collection should serve instructors with varied levels of online teaching experience and different needs. We aim to provide a library of resources that could be used to create a full Calculus 1 course, but have presented those resources in a way in which faculty could select just several resources to serve their course needs. So we framed our collection of resources around a broad list of course level objectives that were addressed throughout at the module level. We offer them here in the resource collection as simply a sample list for your course. The collection is organized into 5 modules: the limit, the derivative, applications of the derivative, integration, and applications of integration. The module level student learning outcomes were developed through an iterative revision process. The team began by collecting sets of student learning outcomes from several UNC institutions and compiling a list of all distinct outcomes for those, from those sets. We reviewed and refined the list until we came to a final set. The outcomes are each aligned with the appropriate module in our resource collection and are listed with relevant course materials, activities, and resources. We've organized this resource collection in one possible sequential format, but this serves as just a sample of a course layout. We encourage faculty to order the topics they cover in ways that work best for them. And now Sarah will talk a bit about the open educational resources and licensing of materials in our collection.
Thanks, Tamar. So for the larger course enhancement project, access to materials for all students and faculty throughout the system was a really important issue. By selecting and adopting open educational resources, or OER, as we call it, and additional open access materials, we have ensured that this access is available, but we've also helped instructors engage with new types of resources and publishing paradigms. Using OER gave faculty teams the opportunity to highly customize the materials they chose to address for each module by adapting some and creating others. By using these resources, we are also able to extend cost savings to our students. This team, as most of the others, chose one of their 3 textbooks from the OpenStax collection. This is a faculty authored textbook series which can be accessed fully online. They augmented these resources with a variety of materials, including videos, ebooks, examples, and assessments. In some cases, they adapted open access templates created by other faculty to create some of their own materials. It is this team's hope that the range of open materials that they've selected for this course will provide faculty implementers with new and innovative materials to use in the classroom. Common to all these activities involved in gathering open resources is dealing with licensing and copyright. This can be a murky area at best, so we were careful to document rights and usage guidance throughout these guides. At the bottom of each resource page, you'll find a list of citations with usage guidance. For anything faculty created, they have also assigned Creative Commons licenses to further help guide you. These are a range of license types that can help faculty determine how material can be used and adapted. If you have questions about these resources or what to adopt any further, what to adopt in terms of any further OER materials, it would be helpful for you to reach out to your campus librarian. And most libraries have either somebody that can deal with digital scholarship, OER, or any of those kinds of areas, as well as librarians that liaise to specific disciplines. They can provide you further help in mapping your needs to any kind of campus regulations around content creation as well. In addition, a more general resource on OER will be available as a part of this course within the implementation guide.
All right, thank you, Sarah. We'll now turn to Matt and Diana for an overview of the Google site that will be going live tomorrow.
Thank you, Tamar. As Tamar said, this site will go live tomorrow, so don't try to click on it now, you'll get nowhere. But faculty who are interested can access the collection of resources on all 10 of the courses that the system is working on through this project right now, through this landing page. The materials for the Calculus 1 course that this team has collected can be accessed by clicking on the button that is labeled as such. Once you click there, you'll land on the Calculus page, which itself is organized into 3 major components. The first link on the page, the implementation guide, is full of suggestions on how to most effectively use the resources that this team has curated. It's full of great information in there on how can I use this and what's in here. The second link takes a user to a document that describes the initiative, the design, how the design process was done, how the team conducted its work. And we'll talk about each of those momentarily. And then the third and primary component of the site is the bottom part, the resource collection. The page contains numerous items in there, and they're organized in 4 different components there. And we'll come back and talk about those shortly.
Thank you, Matthew. The implementation guide is a great starting place for anyone interested in using the digital course enhancements. The implementation guide offers an introduction to the overall project and then an overview of the materials selected by the subject matter experts on the project team. The implementation guide also explains how these resources are organized and describes each category of resource. Finally, the implementation guide gives faculty a collection of strategies and recommendations for putting these resources into use. The design process overview document might be your next step. This document gives some background on the UNC System Office project in general and on this team's approach to the calculus portion of the project specifically. The design process document also lists the course level student learning outcomes that the calculus team used to build this resource collection, then describes how the modules and student learning outcomes are organized and aligned. Once you have read these documents, you'll be able to maximize your use of the digital enhancements. Matthew will tell us more about the resources themselves.
Thank you, Diana. Yes, I'll just give a quick overview. Here, if you click on the resource collection link, it takes you to a page where you can look at these items more specifically. So there's a button to online textbook resources. And the team has reviewed numerous online texts, chosen 3, and selected 132 online resources from those individual textbooks. The second button on this page is video resources. We have almost 600 video resources that have been included. The team looked at, I couldn't tell you how many of these, chose many, and narrowed it down to 597. But there's some great resources in there. There's also almost 200 other activities that we have found, digital resources for various activities, and 13 types of formative assessments and multiple examples of summative assessment questions. So the team reviewed hundreds and hundreds of things diligently, carefully, thoroughly, thoughtfully, never sleeping, and compiled a great resource pile for you. So we're going to walk through each of those 4 samples now with some of the content experts themselves.
Thank you, Matt and Diana. We'll now turn to Elizabeth for an overview of the online textbook and video resources in the collection.
So as Tamar mentioned, within the broad modules of the limit, derivative, integration, and applications, we divided Calculus 1 into 34 concepts. And we selected 3 online textbooks that aligned with our learning outcomes for each of these 34 concepts. And you can access a curated web page highlighting our findings within the resource collection by clicking Online Textbook Resources. These texts are Mooculus, OpenStax, and Active Calculus. At the top of the Online Textbook Resources webpage, there's a list of the 34 concepts. You can see that on the left there. If you're interested in accessing all of the online textbook resources associated with a specific concept, you would click on the appropriate bookmarked concept. For instance, by clicking that fan favorite Volumes of Solids of Revolution at the bottom, you'll be taken to the corresponding appropriate volume materials within the larger table of all our textbook resources on this webpage. So within that chosen concepts row in this table on this webpage, you can see sample learning outcomes for that concept and the section and title or the section number where those outcomes are addressed within each of these 3 online texts. And appropriate links, as you can see within those cells there on the right, will route you to specific points in the online text which correspond to the given concept. Alternately, If you're interested in accessing all of the material housed within one of those 3 text resources, you can scroll past that bookmark list and progress to the table, and then column-wise proceed through all of the Calculus 1 concepts. Regardless of whether you access the specific section of the text by resource, so in a column, or by concept in a row, in this one web page, you can navigate all 132 of the textbook materials that we have thoughtfully curated for effectiveness to enhance your upcoming Calculus 1 class. But throughout the curation process, we, of course, discovered more than 3 online textbooks. So at the bottom of the online textbook resources webpage, we've included additional texts that are freely available throughout the UNC system, as well as an evaluation scheme that you can use to weigh the pros and cons of a given resource before recommending it to your students. We have also curated a collection of videos pertaining to Calculus 1. That's our second aspect of the resource collection. So I know that I often have students that, 1, don't read the assigned textbook, so 2, aren't gonna look at additional online textbooks, and 3, they usually claim that they can just learn math by using videos online. So to save students and instructors from unproductive YouTube rabbit holes, we've gleaned through the world of calculus videos and curated a set of 597 instructive, thoughtful, and mathematically sound videos pertaining to Calculus 1. The video resources webpage can be accessed through our resource collection webpage here. The videos we selected for this enhancement collection are from 4 different sources: Khan Academy, the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, Teru's Chalk Talk, and Krista King Math. Khan Academy and Teru's Chalk Talk provide more instructional videos, while Krista King typically works through examples. The science and math videos provide both development ideas and worked examples. So instructors can access our video resources here by navigating in the same way they did in that textbook resources. So links to all 597 videos are contained on this one web page. Videos for a specific calculus topic are in rows of that web page, and videos from a specific source are in those columns. And within each of those cells, the length of each video is shown. So students and instructors often find videos helpful when mastering calculus techniques, because, I mean, you don't necessarily know how to visualize the rate of change of the angle of a lighthouse's beam of light as it bounces off the shore, especially. You're not good at that if you move to North Carolina from Montana, like I did. So a video representing what that looks like can be a huge help when you're trying to crush calculus. However, this collection of video resources is not intended to replace our highly qualified calculus instructors across the UNC system, but instead this collection is meant to augment your awesome efforts as you go through this instructional process. But for both the textbooks and the video resources, it can be helpful if you, the instructor, provide some guiding questions, notes, or activities to ensure that your students take away those key concepts from those texts or videos. Our implementation guide, which we mentioned earlier, on our course enhancement webpage has more details on developing these types of guiding materials, assessments, and activities. Tamar will now delve into that 3rd resource on our enhancement collection, activities.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yep, as Elizabeth said, a 3rd resource in our library is a collection of activities of various types and in different forms, and you can find it as the 3rd item in our collection. I will take you to this resource, and we have 3 main categories. One is guided activities, as with the video and textbook resources, you can access the curated activities document within the resource collection by clicking that activities. At the top of the web page, you'll see a similar table to that Elizabeth showed earlier with the 34 concepts bookmarked in the table to take you directly to the corresponding concept of your interest. We organized these in 3 main categories: guided activities using Desmos or GeoGebra, second category of GeoGebra applets, And a third that's other investigations, lesson worksheets, assessments, rubrics, and activities. As with the videos and textbook resources, we've aligned the activities with the appropriate concepts and student learning outcomes. I think Elizabeth did a really nice job of navigating you through that. We provide activities with the note also that any activity can have a grade associated with it. So these could be activities or assessments. As mentioned earlier, our team aimed to provide materials in a format that would be useful to all Calculus 1 instructors system-wide. So with that goal, most of the activities provided in this collection are posted as Word or PDF files that can be downloaded into an editable format. Items in the first column come from several sources that provide activities with instructions and questions to guide students throughout investigations using either Desmos or GeoGebra. Items in the second column are links to GeoGebra applets that rarely have words or questions around them. It's literally just the visualizations, the interactive visualizations of calculus concepts that align with a number of our student learning outcomes. And items in the third column include links to other investigations, lesson worksheets, assessments, rubrics that align with our student learning outcomes. These resources come from faculty at Appalachian State, North Carolina School of Science and Math, as well as other publicly accessible sources. I'm going to turn it over to Tracy and Trina, who will now talk a bit about the fourth main resource type we've included in our collection, designing formative and summative assessments.
Thanks, Tamar. After we finished collecting all of the other resources, we felt that we needed one more piece to kind of pull things together. When we have our students in front of us in the class, there are so many different ways that we can tell how a lesson is going. We can ask them for a thumbs up, a thumbs down. We can have them write an exit ticket. We can even tell from the expressions on their faces or the buzz in the room, when we might need to modify our instruction. But we lose a lot of that when we move to online and hybrid instruction if we don't purposefully make it a part of our instruction. So we wanted to take several formative assessments that are usually done in a face-to-face class and show how you could modify them to use in an online or hybrid class. We pulled together 13 different examples, and this one is one of my favorites. It's called Odd One Out. And the idea, like if you were to use it in a face-to-face class, you could use it at several different points in the lesson. It could be a warm-up activity. It could be a final wrap-up that you use before you get ready to go into another topic. It could be an activity to get your students talking to each other. They're not meant to be right or wrong. They're just meant to help your students choose an answer and then get practice at articulating their mathematical thinking. For online or hybrid classes, you could set this up as a discussion board or maybe as an ungraded assignment. One of the really cool things about doing it as a discussion board is they wouldn't necessarily have to type out their answers. They could use something like Flipgrid or VoiceThread, or even the tools just right there in the learning management system for the discussion board. And they could record video or audio answers. We have also provided, you see right there at the end, a link to some sample discussion board rubrics. Now we know that for formative assessments, we don't have to grade them, but if you think you might use this type of question later on a graded assignment, you'd want to let your students see how you would grade it. These are very simple rubrics that you could use, and you could have the students grade each other with them, perhaps maybe require a response to a discussion board prompt where they grade a certain number of their classmates using those rubrics. So I'm going to turn it over to Trina now for suggestions about creative summative assessments.
Thank you, Tracy. So finding ways to create higher stakes assessments can be challenging since we often test Calculus 1 skills in a structured, controlled environment. So when making tests, we typically try to ask questions at many levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and assessing students' proficiency with the basic skills can be often accomplished through online homework systems or adaptive learning systems such as Sackling or Newton. And in this document, we wanted to share some ideas and examples to help you create your own higher stakes summative assessments. So here's one example of a portfolio that I used in place of a test on applications of the derivative. Students were asked to pick 5 questions from a list to write up with great clarity. Now within the assignment, I gave an example of the level of detail I expected from them, and then also provided a rubric. And then in class, we also practiced the rubric on each other before I used it. So needless to say, students performed much better on this assignment than past students did on the test. But more importantly, I feel students actually learned more than memorizing steps to regurgitate for a test. Many more students actually came in for help to understand the small details that they had just memorized before. So in our document, there's another example of an assessment where students create questions. So that one's there also to look at. So many examples that Tracy talked about, or Tracy has in the document, can also work for test questions. Some of these questions have multiple answers and require explanation that are much more difficult to copy. So here are two examples. The first one is a give an example of or create. And the second one is an example asking students to compare and contrast. So notice that these types of questions are higher on Bloom's taxonomy. So when I make an online test, I sometimes make part of my test these type of questions that need to be handwritten and turned in. And then I make the other part of the test might come from the online homework system that we're using at the time. All right, I will turn it back over to Tamara.
Thank you, Trina. Well, as we mentioned earlier, we provide an implementation guide that includes 5 main sections: a brief introduction to the project, an overview of the materials we've included in the collection, the organization of resources with a list of modules and associated concepts, as well as a link out to the full list of student learning outcomes, though that full list is also within each of the resource types in the table and within the opening table and the table of resources. Brief descriptions of each of the 4 resource types, and a section on strategies and recommendations for implementation. So we also recognize that calculus instructors across the system may be using these resources. So some of these strategies won't work for your context if you have a large class size versus a small class size, but we do offer these recommendations for you to consider to see if perhaps you could also adapt it for your context. These recommendations offer strategies such as assessing students in a variety of ways and more frequently than perhaps traditionally done. We go in a bit more detail on each of these. These are just the bullet points. When incorporating activities that involve videos, consider providing a set of guided notes or questions for students to engage with as they view the videos, as Elizabeth mentioned earlier. Provide opportunities for students to engage in activities that, in addition to skill building, also build intuition into the concepts you teach. Provide opportunities for students to work in groups, if possible, discussing concepts and exchanging their thoughts and ideas. That's another really great use of the discussion board. Provide supporting materials in an asynchronous platform such as Canvas or Moodle, and consider including self-regulation activities for students to assess their own progress and level of confidence in their understanding of the material covered in the course. And as is good practice when incorporating any adapted or borrowed resource, it's helpful to check the notation and language used and inform your students of what they mean if it's not the same as the notation that you use. View each of the videos you consider selecting for your course in advance. Work activities completely before assigning them to your students. Ensure that the resources that you choose address your intended learning goals. Consider providing a sample set of solutions where appropriate, as you may not have as much in-class time to review solutions to homework or problem sets, especially in an all-9 environment. So we wanted to thank you for attending this webinar. We'd like to thank the statistics team for providing us with really helpful ideas for our presentation today. We're really happy they went first. We'd like to express special thanks and appreciation to Michelle Soler for her incredible support, guidance, encouragement. She's been truly an incredibly critical part of our work. We'd also love to hear your feedback. So if you can, please complete the survey that's provided here. And we have plenty of time for questions and answers. So I'll open it up to you all. If you have anything you'd like to share, please feel free to send them through the chat as well if you'd prefer, and we'll answer through the video.
Hi, I have a question. Hi, this is TK. I'll be the incoming chair for UNC Charlotte this coming fall. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think this is very helpful to see how the project is coming along. We appreciate that. Yeah, I have a quick question about the different videos and contents that you have put together. How did you figure out the notational issues? For example, I can see that for some students or for a particular instructor and the textbook maybe they're using, they might be sort of tied to a particular notation. And I see that here you have various sources and you have utilized the videos and everything together. And I'm sure they're all excellent in terms of the selecting them, but do you think that the notation could vary from one to the other, and would that be helpful for an instructor to be able to, just to figure out the ones that would be appropriate for their particular offering and sort of walk through that and make sure it's sort of well maintained within their class when they're offering their notation, when they're giving a lecture and so on. It's a fantastic project. I love the idea, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, I have some comments to include, but definitely others on the team can answer. I know I think that's part of why we suggested viewing the videos in advance of incorporating them into your lesson materials, because you do want to ensure that if the videos are wonderful, except the notation might be a hurdle, it may be useful if you're going to use a series of them to make it very explicit to your students. Actually incorporate some of that notation into the course to try and minimize the amount of confusion in your students, and do it in advance so that students aren't surprised when they see it in the video. So I know for me, I would likely, if I were going to use a number of videos that had different notation, I might actually even make it an exercise and ask them in the video, what do you notice is different from what notation or language I use, and then we can use that as a discussion point when we meet synchronously or through discussion boards. Otherwise, yeah, I think making it explicit, which again speaks to any instructor viewing the videos in advance of using them, is a really, I know for me, it's something that has served me well in the past. Would others on the team like to respond?
I would just add that that's also how we kind of ended up with the format that we have for the way that we're presenting them, because we thought that we might find that you might find one instructor's notation more aligned with your own notation. And so then by putting them in those columns, that way you could just stay with that one particular resource through all the topics.
Also, in viewing each of them in the series, I didn't notice any notation that was that isn't used pretty traditionally in all in traditional calculus courses. Did others find that kind of, yeah, I think the notation and language was pretty consistent.
Thank you.
Other questions? We do have a backup exercise, which is to give you a glimpse of the site. So I'm happy to do that while others are perhaps thinking of some questions.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll exit out of this. Okay. So we wanted to design this in a way that was not busy and didn't have too much on it, but also had enough interest, enough materials, but that was also simple to navigate. So this is where you would access the implementation guide. That's one place you can. And what pops up here is an embedded Google Doc that can also be popped out if you wanted to view it in a separate browser. You could also access the implementation guide right here up at the top menu of the site. If I go back home, the design process document is here. Takes a moment to load. You could also access that up here in this menu. You scroll down to the resource collection. You could click right here for resource collection. It takes you to another page, but those same buttons are there, and that's actually the page that you would get if you click on resource collection at the top menu. If you wanted to access the online textbook resources from this home page, this is where that lives. And this is that beautiful table that Elizabeth mentioned earlier. You could click on one of these, click on the bookmark, and it takes you down to that row. And then if you click on the actual item, it'll take you to the site or the resource. So that's the textbook resources, also available up at the upper menu. If I go back home, do the same with video resources. There's the table again, now bookmarked with the appropriate row in that document. And these are the videos with, as Elizabeth noted, time lengths of the videos and their sources. You can go to activities from here. Similar setup. I could go to activities from resource collection also, or from home. All points to the same document. And then designing, I'll go this way. Designing formative and summative assessments. Or I could go home and get it from there. Yep. It was a quick tour.
Okay. Tomorrow we have a question in the chat.
Okay. Oh, I see a comment. Valerie DeBellis, thank you very much. Ah, are there plans for pre-calculus? I think that's a Michelle question.
I think that we really tried to do pre-calculus when we were pushing this. So I'm going to say yes, there are plans for pre-calculus. And then it's my understanding that if someone wants to go on a calculus 2, we might need that one as well. So I'm going to say yes for pre-cal. I just don't know the time right now, but since we do have the Math Pathways Task Force sitting behind both of these math pieces, we do have an enormous amount of talent ready to put that together, as well as some people on this call who may be teaching pre-cal. Which would not be me. So if there are no other questions, anybody? Oh, here's, do you see that, Tamar?
I do, yes. Heather Reese from East Carolina. You reviewed some Khan Academy videos when looking for something to use in a transitions to higher math class. I found them to be less formal than some others. Did you find that for calculus too? Again, I'll make a comment, but this open to the floor. I think the I too have found at times where it isn't as structured as some other videos are. I know the North Carolina School of Science and Math ones are very scripted and structured. Khan Academy, I believe they're a little bit more talking you through and talking with you. So they may seem a little less formal. they're mathematically sound, but if you are looking for something a little bit more polished and kind of clean, you may look at some of the videos that are a little shorter in length. Though Khan Academy offers so many videos that if you're really looking for content, you can likely find one. And of course, we have that in our table. But do others have comments about Khan Academy videos formality?
I guess I would just add that I think each of the video series had their own little quirk. You know, the Chalk Talk one's the guy jumps into the screen. And then in Krista King's videos, she always starts the videos in the same manner. So I'll have a little quirk or something like that. But again, we went back and forth a bit about the Khan Academy videos, but again, they had so many that could hit all of the topics that we had identified for our student learning objectives. So that's kind of why we felt we needed to include them as well.
Right. They did cover also a number of like developing the concept as opposed to just skill-based, like the building intuition type of videos. And so we found that those were pretty valuable. But yeah, I don't disagree that sometimes they're not as formal as you may want to include in your course.
I got another one that was just sent to me. Okay. How did you engage in making decisions about the presentation of specific topics when selecting materials? For example, I have a colleague who would never agree to any text that used equals 0/0 in print when evaluating limits. Of course, they continued working the problem, but it implies equality, which isn't true. Did you get that far into the weeds in curating the material?
I have an answer to that as well, but others.
Go ahead, Tamar.
Okay. Yes, on the whole, there may have been areas where we didn't catch those kinds of things. We did go through a few video series where there were just too many of those kinds of things, and that's when we knew that that was not something we wanted to include. So the 4 that we did, we felt that we of course couldn't watch almost 600 videos, but we felt that there was enough evidence to show that those kinds of things didn't come up. And if they did, I think I know as an instructor, if that's again why I like to view the videos before I bring them into my classroom, because if there is something like that, I may again turn it into an assignment on their end. Is there anything that we've talked in class about that was inconsistent in the video itself? Or did you find an error? That kind of thing. Or just have that as a discussion point in the video. But we tried to vet the resources as much as possible before inclusion. And there were a number of scrapped resources. Yes. Yes, sadly.
And also in the ones that we included, we felt like they had been vetted enough to the point that, you know, if there was a minor mistake in one of the videos, these particular folks have gone in and noted it. You know, like you'll catch it in the title. It'll say, hey, read the notes to this video. And it'll say, you know, on slide so-and-so, there's a typo or something. So we felt really good about that.
And that's also to say that as you dig into these materials, if you find things like that, we would love to hear that. This is something that we're presenting to the system, but understand that there will likely be things that we need to revise. So we are definitely open to that feedback. We'd rather it be right.
Agreed.
Yes.
you all. This was just a fabulous presentation and effort in setting the bar very high for the rest of the teams. We so appreciate the template of the implementation guide and the design process, and you and the statistics team really leading the way for the other teams to be successful. So if there are no other questions, I think we might be done with this one. And I'd like to give you a round of applause. All right, I'm going to stop the webinar, or stop the recording actually. Please go ahead and fill out the survey if you don't mind, that will help us. And we have 2 webinars done, 8 to go, and we will be finished at 4 o'clock on July 2nd. Have a great week, everybody.
Same to you.